Hey everybody, make sure to check out the 2020 Fantasy Baseball Almanac and Draft Guide. It comes with free in-season advice. You can't get that anywhere else. Check it out on Amazon.com or look in the show notes below. All right, so let's move it. Let's close this out now with the Washington Nationals, reigning World Series champions, got past the Houston Astros and their sign stealing. What was it? 7 games. It was a really good World Series. Obviously lost a big piece this year in the offseason, but they still have a lot of talent. Obviously, Trey Turner and Soto among them. But why don't you talk a little bit about their offense? Right now, big question mark, I think, is at third base, unless they've closed that hole since I've started compiling this fantasy baseball draft guide that we do year to year. Why don't you talk about their offense a little bit, Eric?
That is where their question mark comes in. You look through the lineup, and it's hard to think that Kendrick is going to recreate probably his best career season.
Yeah.
I really don't know that, especially coming in, he's now 36 years old, pushing 37. I don't see him coming out and hitting 344 again with 17 home runs.
Yeah.
I don't see him being that guy. He's a good piece. They have a lot of really good depth pieces. That they can move around, which is nice, and it works for them to avoid injuries, which is what hindered him early last year. But I don't see him reaching those heights. Castro, Starlin Castro is another one they signed. He'll probably slot into second base. Again, he's just not a guy that you can really get excited about to replace the offense that you lost with Rendon.
Yeah.
As Dribble Cabrera, that's who's going to be plugged into third base unless they go with Kieboom, the rookie, which I doubt to start the season they will.
Sure.
So it's hard to say where they're going to get that from. Turner and Soto and Robles are the only guys I'm really looking at offensively as draft worthy right now. Turner's great. He's one of the best shortstops around. Love the guy. Can do a lot, and he's just going to keep getting better. Soto, he's going to be an MVP candidate this year. And Robles is going to continue to get better.
Soto. So I ended up landing Soto in my quest for finding keepers in our league, in my crummy team that I took over. I ended up landing Soto pre-draft last year. I think I traded Blackman and got Soto straight up and just rode Soto. And I love this guy, 21 years old coming into the season, league age 21. 110 runs last year, 153 hits, 32 doubles, 34 home runs, 110 RBI, 12 stolen bases, 108 walks drawn, 282 batting average, so a little bit of room for improvement. And I think he will improve on those numbers. Just a really good player, along with Acuna, who we talked about in our podcast episode a little bit before. I mean, there's just a lot of really young talent. And like you said, I do think that, give it 3 to 4 years, you're going to be talking about Acuna, Soto, along the lines with like a Mike Trout and those kinds of guys. I think they're just going to be really, really good and continue to grow, especially those two guys, those two young studs, both under 23 years old. Just really, really good. So I'm excited to have him on my fantasy baseball team.
Yeah, definitely. He's a guy I would be targeting if he wasn't already on a team. But outside of those 3 guys, there's just not a lot to be excited about in that offense. It's going to be a good offense because there's not that they don't have that guy that's just awful, but they don't have Rendon in there.
And I'm a little concerned about that because Rendon, I believe, hit behind Soto, and that helps when you have somebody of that caliber hitting behind him. So it wouldn't even shock me if Soto just faces a little bit more tougher pitch selection this year. So even if he dips, I'm not going to be super concerned about it. And frankly, I'm kind of expecting a little bit, at least in terms of batting average, but I still think he's definitely on an upward trajectory.
Oh, absolutely, and there will be struggles because right now there's no. It's like I said with the Braves, who you're going to have behind Freeman right now.
Right.
It's the same thing with Soto. Who's going to hit behind him at this point? You don't have anyone to really plug in behind him that pitchers are going to say, okay, I'd rather pitch to Soto. I'm not, if they had signed Donaldson or kept Rendon, you have that option. His walks are going to spike right now as is, which means some other things might go down a touch. So it's going to be interesting, but he's going to have some struggles to see a lot to hit right now, I think, as constructed.
Sure. All right, and let's talk about the staff. Obviously, you got Scherzer and Strasburg, 2, and Corbin, 3. Just really aces. Corbin, I believe, was your first overall pick in our keeper league last year. And you rode him. I tried to get him from you a couple times in some deals, couldn't make it happen. But why don't you talk about kind of the top of the rotation and then kind of the bottom of the rotation? Do you think this team has what it takes to make another run this year with that rotation?
Yeah, that right now as it stands, I would actually pick them to win the division, and I think that has more to do with um the Braves missing that key bat.
Yeah.
Um, as it stands, because of their pitching, I think they can. If the Braves can add a big bat, I think that'll put them over the top. But yeah, I mean, Scherzer's still right up there, as the best there is, and he's a guy I just I he's like this. There's a reason they call him Mad Max. He's
Right.
the most terrifying pitcher in baseball, really. He's kind of what Randy Johnson used to be. You don't want to mess with him. You don't want to look at him wrong, any of that. So he's ridiculous. He's a robot. That's all I can say.
Right.
Yeah. So he's an easy first rounder, and Strasburg's right behind him, really really good. And he kind of showed what he's truly capable of last year. Kind of broke. Really, it's hard to say a guy who's been as good as he has for years that broke out, but I think that really is what we can say about Strasburg because he finally reached the hype that they always had for him
Yeah.
ever since they took him with that draft pick.
Yeah, 18 and
Um,
6, 3.32 ERA, 251 strikeouts, a 1.038 whip, and 10.8 strikeouts per nine, 5.7 WAR. Very good.
yeah, I like him a lot. Corbin as a number three is ridiculous.
Right.
So he had some moments where he got hit hard last year, which always has been his MO, but for the most part, he's better than he ever was. So he's been really good. He's going to continue that. I don't see any reason for him to step backwards. So that lineup's good. Anibal Sanchez is going to continue to be a solid mid rotation guy.
Right.
He's not going to be a Cy Young candidate, but he's not going to get blown up. So he's a good option there. And there's questions on their number five starter. Is it going to be Joe Ross? I don't know. Right now he's probably the leader there, but they could easily sign somebody,
Sure.
or add or come up. So, the number five starter is the question, but they have enough out of those first 3-4 guys where I don't think they're overly concerned with their rotation.
Very good. Top and bottom, floor and ceiling. What do you think the prospects are for this team?
As constructed right now, I think, a division title is possible. And then once you get into the playoffs with that rotation,
Sure.
anything's possible. Though I'm concerned about their offense without Rendon or without a suitable substitute. So I
Yeah.
don't know that they have to go all the way at this point. Even if they can shut down, I don't think they're going to have the offense to put them over the top. The floor, I think, is probably, just with that rotation alone, I think your third place is the worst you can really finish, barring injuries.
Sure.
So,
All right. Well, that takes us through the NL East. We're going to be back, obviously, doing the full series. So if you're listening to us on the podcast, on the Get Paid podcast, Eric will be back in the coming weeks, still doing these previews. We're gonna fold this into to the the MLB season and all that stuff. So spring training's around the corner too, which is awesome. For our YouTube audience, thank you. Please like, subscribe to the channel. We're gonna have more commentary from Eric Zimmerman, aka the Baseball Llama. Once again, keep an eye out for the Fantasy Baseball Almanac and Draft Guide, which will be, if you're viewing this on YouTube, is going to be posted. It is live, so check the notes below. If you're on the podcast, it'll be there next week. I anticipate it being up by January 20th. So I'll have the note in the show notes, or the link in the show notes. So check that out. It is written primarily by Eric. I put some of my functional sportsaholic stats behind it, but Eric is really driving the ship on the fantasy baseball stuff because he is the fantasy baseball expert. He knows all of the farm system. He knows who are the up and comers, the guys that could be coming up in the midseason, when you should be targeting these guys. We do our fantasy baseball almanac a little bit differently than other people do. So it's part season preview, and it's mostly fantasy baseball rankings and everything. So we got you covered there. And yeah, man. So Eric, once again, thanks for the time. And everybody out there, go out, make some bets, play some daily fantasy, and get paid. All right, buddy. That went longer than I thought.